Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 5 of New York and Beyond with me, Christina Kremidas. And in this episode, we are talking all about relationships, including relationships with others, relationships during a pandemic, and of course, relationships with ourselves. So stay tuned, we're covering everything here. Welcome back, guys. Thank you for being with me for another episode of New York and Beyond. New York and Beyond strives to help us all achieve our fullest lives by putting us directly in touch with experts in various industries to give us valuable takeaways and life learnings. In this episode, we're talking all about relationships, and our guest today is Susan Winter. She's a relationship expert and a love coach who's helped over 5,000 people find and keep love, and that doesn't even include her nearly 200,000 YouTube subscribers who watch her uploads that are full of insight and meaning. Susan is also a best-selling author. Her books, Allowing Magnificence, Breakup Triage, and Older Women, Younger Men are truly amazing. The reason why I thought it was so important to bring Susan to you guys is because she specializes in evolutionary forms of loving relationships and higher thinking. She writes, speaks, and coaches on dating issues, relationship challenges, and personal empowerment. Susan's appeared on so many media outlets, including the Oprah Winfrey Show, The Today Show, CNN, Cosmo, Men's Health, Harper Bazaar. The list goes on, and I am so thankful that I was able to secure Susan for you guys and have her on today's show. Before I bring her in, I did just want to remind you guys to please like and subscribe. This really helps me bring more videos like this to you. This is something that is completely free and so easy for you to do, but it is the biggest way that you can support me, and I immensely appreciate it. So with that said, let's talk to Susan. Okay. Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for being with us today. I am so excited to hear everything that you have in store for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So briefly, can you introduce yourselves to our audience? I gave them a little bit already in the intro, but just in your own words, what you do and your mission.
Sure. I'm a best-selling author and I'm a relationship expert. So for people that are having difficulties understanding what they're in, like, am I in something? Is it a situationship? Do I have a relationship? I'm in a relationship. It's not working well. I'm in a marriage. I don't know where it's going. I'm the one that would answer your questions and help you through that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like right now, this is such a time to be in a relationship, dating, looking for a relationship, even realigning your relationship with yourself during this time, during this crazy year that we've had. So I think it's so timely to have you on. And I can't wait to talk about dating in a pandemic, all these different ways that our relationships have been challenged.
You know, this has been, as you accurately said, a year of review. I know everybody has gone through some form of life review. There's been a lot of home decoration because people were stuck there, learning how to cook, reassessing friendships, reassessing relationships, getting involved in a turbo relationship, which is a unique term to COVID. People that were just starting to see each other didn't want to be locked out of having a relationship. So they're like, hey, I got to be alone. You've got to be alone. Let's do it together. Or relationships that were already in existence that really sped up because the couple were living together and they're like, you know, if we can get through this, we might as well get married. So there's been a lot of reassessment during this time period and an inward journey, certainly, because a lot of the distraction, the noise is gone. And so when we're left with ourselves, we're left with our thoughts, right?
Absolutely. Could not have said it better. So much learning has occurred. Some of it's been hard. I mean, some of it's definitely been hard realizations and some of it's been great. I think that everyone can agree that we're thankful for where we are, you know, through the hard times and the happy times, but really just trying to kick off this year and try to take everything that happened and apply it so that we can use it the best that we can.
Correct.
Yeah. So I know that we briefly talked about some topics that we know we want to cover in this episode. And I was going to wait till a little bit later to start talking about your book, but your book, Allowing Magnificence, I'm just going to show it quickly to the audience.
Aww.
And I have to honestly say that since finishing this book, since we last spoke and connected, Susan, I have new questions that I absolutely must start with. I hope that's okay.
I love it. Love it.
Okay. So, and I think that this is going to really set the tone for our audience. And, you know, it's one thing to be a relationship expert, but it's another thing to come from the place that you come from. And I think that this is what makes you so unique. This is what makes you so unique. Yes. And this is what I feel you offer incredible value. So in the beginning of this book, the whole book is amazing. First of all, guys, if you, I'm going to link it in the description. Everyone will buy it.
Okay.
But this book starts out with some things that you would hear in a law of attraction manual to a certain extent in the beginning. Right.
Yeah.
And then by the middle, oh my God, it's like you are peeled to your core of what really.
I know you read it. Now I know you really read the whole thing.
Oh yeah. I mean,
surprises,
right? I didn't just skim it, Susan.
There are some surprises in there. Yep.
There are some. First of all, I thank you and commend you for bearing your truths in a very raw way in this book. But also, I mean, if you're looking for something that will help you psychologically get to the core of pretty much being able to be amazing in any relationship possible, this book gets down to it. And there were a couple of points that I would love to bring out. So you talk about limiting beliefs in this book.
Right.
Limiting beliefs is a term that we hear all the time, but the way you interpret it in terms of we are born, not only that we're born perfect, but we are born with a primal instinct that animals, I mean, it's funny because I always think like humans, we think that we are this chosen species. Like we think we are so great. Yeah. But the animal, right? Like the animal world operates on a certain level of primal instinct. And it allows them to kind of cohesively and easily go where the flow takes them to a certain extent. But as humans, we find that we take on so much of the perceptions and the beliefs that we get from other people throughout our lives, especially in our early upbringing in childhood. Yeah. And it causes us to force ourselves to act differently than our primal instincts may say to act. We are trying to row against the stream in many, many ways. So there were a couple of quotes from your book that I really just have to mention. Self-worth is derived. Yeah. So you say self-worth is derived from other people and external events. You mentioned that, not being a good thing, obviously. You mentioned that the physical world is in opposition to our truth. We have been taught to seek our inner selves by looking outward. I could almost cry saying this out loud. So can you help us understand how does this way of being actually hurt us and our relationships? And if you have tips for how we can live our true, authentic lives.
Wow. Okay. So thank you, first of all, for all of this. We are all products of conditioning, and that's what you do to have a civilized society. And from the time that we're very young, we learn, no, you can't do that. Yes, you can do this. This is okay. This isn't okay. But we are learning secondhand and oftentimes third and fourth hand. Our parents, our caregivers, our community, they're telling us the best that they know at that point in history. So evolution is allowing for new input. And what the problem that most kids have is as they're growing up, that buffer of what they're seeing, they're assessing it in against their inner core. And their core has new information. Their core has the original information. Well, let me back up. I believe that we're born perfect, whole, and complete. The separation happens through societal input. The rub, we need it. can't have people just going feral. You're not going to have a community, but it is the unlearning that sets us free. It is the awareness that, yes, we've been conditioned, society needs to be functional, but it is the untethering of things that no longer serve us, of ideology that was given to us, of reactivity that was told to us that we should feel this way. It's that discovery, because in your truest state, you feel connected. In your truest state, you feel a part of everything. And so it is becoming aware of, I think teenagers are rebellious because, I'll just take myself. In the first stage is that it's rebellion. Like, I don't like this and I don't like that, and I'm not doing this and I'm not buying into that. The second stage that people don't talk about, this is where you take that anger and that frustration and you mold it into something purposeful and creative. This is how you find your soul purpose. You start to take what irritates you, what bothers you, what's an injustice, and you start to examine it and think, if it affects me this way, it must affect other people. How can I correct this? How can I amend this? And that oftentimes becomes somebody's soul work. Artists talk about this all the time. The artistic impulse to express feelings are to be able to eliminate and to commiserate with. And so all of this is a part of our healing process. So it is questioning, it is the process of questioning, what do I believe? What am I told that I believe? And society is all pervasive. It's in our face every day. Social media, our friends. You're in New York City, you're in a very high-end luxury business, money, prestige, power, you got your Hermes bag, you don't have your Jimmy Choos, you got your this, you got your that. I mean, you know, sometimes we can get very lost. And unfortunately, we know people that that's all they are. They've just absorbed this and then they wonder why they're miserable. And so the job is really, it's inner work, you know?
This is just so relatable. I feel like so many people will be able to relate to this concept. And when reading your book too, it's just, you feel a sense of acceptance and just validation for why we may feel the way that we feel. So
oh yeah, it's normal. Yeah. It's normal to feel that way. It's human. Look, we've been given an impossible task. We're born into a place where we don't know what's going on. We have a few people that insist that they know. Others tell us they've got the way. And the whole time, you know, the big secret is you already know. You've got your answers, but that would be very inconvenient. Imagine the systems that would fall. But you were born knowing. We've got, I call it an internal computer. We've got theirs, and if you've ever been in a relationship and things are going wrong, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your computer's going ding, 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 warning, 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 something's off. The input I'm getting is not quite right. Something's happening. We're born with intuition. We're born connected to ourselves. So it is an effort to be able to close off the cacophony of the world and just focus. And I think that's why some people enjoy meditation, yoga. It brings them back to themselves. Whatever your discipline is, it might be able to help you to clear away the clutter and the noise and focus in on who you are and what's important to you.
Yeah, I mean, we're taught, it's so true what you say. I mean, we're taught to not trust our intuition. I mean, you say, like, I feel one thing, what I want is one thing, but what society makes me feel I need is something different. So how can I go achieve that thing that's something different, which is what I love about your book, where you mention these principles of you can achieve the greatest version of your life. If you want this, you will get it. But then you kind of just turn upside down. Well, what is that?
I think, you know, for me, I'm now in an accidental career. And I was getting close. I was always in communications. I started off as an opera singer. That's why I came to New York. And then I had a theater degree too. So I'd go back and forth between, you know, stage work and operettas and musicals and stuff like that. And then I got tired of the life of auditioning. You have a job and then it's done. And then you have to audition again for another job. So it's a weird kind of a trajectory. And then I went into speaking for corporations to articulate as a spokeswoman. And then I finally ended up in financial news on camera. And so I thought to myself, wow, you know, you've always been speaking, but you've been saying other people's words. Very well, but you've been saying other people's words. And then I had a life experience that made me really look inward, and I so separated from the pack that there was no pretending I was one of the group anymore. I fell in love with a guy 20 years younger in a time and place and location that, you just don't do that. And so that kicked off Older Women, Younger Men, which is a book I wrote about discrimination when the woman's older than the man. And then it brought me to all the thinking that I use today, because I've had to sort my life out. When you're living an original life, your footprint won't look like anybody else's. And that can be scary because an original life has never been done before. I mean, we all have similarities, but you're uniquely yourself. And if you let go and allow yourself to do that, you will find that you leave a lot of things behind. You gain a lot of things in the future, but it's a process of separation and then cohesion again.
And trusting, there is no process. So you can't say trusting the process, but trusting
yourself.
And trusting that the end is going to be beautiful, and that you
Correct.
can go with your gut, and each this little decision that you make will amount to this beautiful goal and life at the end. But you have to just trust that you're going to get yourself there.
Yeah, the universe is on our side. The impulse of life is growth, forward movement. Yes, there's death for new growth. So it depends on how you look at life. If we look at allowing Magnificence was really written so that when people have an enormous emotional, physical, psychological challenge, that they will have a set of tools inside themselves and know how to utilize that to get through that challenge and get to the better side of it. So one of the big things I talked about in that book is, I used to hate it when I'd hear people go, "Oh, everything happens for a reason." It's like, okay, don't just say that phrase. I want to hear you say that when you get cancer, then you tell me. Because if everything happens for a reason, it means everything, and even the stuff you don't like. So we've got to learn how to spin this stuff to make it work for us. And that's where I don't believe that life just hands us horrible situations. I think life hands us the most uniquely, brilliantly crafted set of circumstances to carve out our true soul purpose, unique to us. What the stuff that you're given, different than the stuff that I'm given. Sometimes it's the same. That's how we commiserate with people. But I think life is far smarter than we are, and life baits us into situations and circumstances that will refine us and bring us to the surface. That is my true belief.
And it's the individuality in all of it that makes it so beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we talk about your concept that you mentioned in that book? And then I promise we'll move on. But
okay.
Can you talk to us about the concept of alchemy that you discussed?
Oh yeah.
Turning negative to positive. Yeah. But really what I like that you mentioned in the book is that negative events have an energy charge, right? So
right.
Negative events that we see as bad actually have a strong energetic charge. You introduced this concept of we can actually change the charge of something from negative to positive. The exact words that you mentioned in the book are to the exact proportion that the situation seems negative, it has the equal degree of charge to become positive. Can you please embellish this a little bit for the audience?
I'll give you a real life example. So I like being liked. Okay. I don't like not being liked. I'm a sensitive person. And when I fell in love with a young man 20 years younger than myself in this little rural community in northwestern New Jersey, I'd left the crime in New York in the 80s and built my dream home out there and fell in love. But I was still young. I was like 39 at the point. He was 19. I flipped to 40. He was actually 18, flipped to 19. All hell broke loose. Everyone in this little community chose me as the person they decided to hate and build stories about. I heard the most horrific stories, and I spent every bit of human energy, spiritual, psychological, and emotional, gearing up to go to the grocery store. because I was a witch, a prostitute, a lesbian. I was, having seances. They had all these horrible stories. I'd been a prostitute in New York. Just everything that I did, every good thing they made bad. And it was so much more fun for these people to believe it. So my neighbors wouldn't talk with me. They wouldn't play golf with me. I had nobody that had the courage to be my friends. And I kept saying, why is this happening? I kept thinking, if I just knew there was a reason for this horrible behavior, I'd get on board. I'd happily pay the price. I couldn't see it. And I kept looking and looking and looking. There's got to be, because I knew enough about metaphysics to know that there's a law of alchemy, that you can make something that you try to take the bad and make it good. And I kept looking for, where's the spin? So as I say, where's the gem in the garbage? Like, where's the gem? And I kept looking for it. I couldn't find it. Don't you know, a casual remark from a girlfriend who didn't work said, oh, we should write a book about older women, younger men. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Because she'd never done anything. She never worked. And I just saw her living on, inherited interest. It's like, well, I don't trust you to work. So I thought, okay, I'll just, I'll amuse her. And so I said, okay. And I wrote it on basically kind of a piece of paper, the first 10 or 15 chapters. She said, go home and write 3. So I wrote 3, and then she said, come back and write 3. And so I wrote by hand. She would type it. Don't you know, she knew how to build a query letter and get an agent. Long story short, after a series of firing agents and getting agents, we got an agent, we got a publishing contract, and the book gave me the career that I do now. I would never be talking to you. You would never know about this. All that was the outcome. And so here's the funniest thing about karma too. This young man's mother hated me so much. She's the one that spread all the rumors. I kept thinking, they kept saying, pray for, the people that harm you. I'm like, I'm not praying for the woman that harms me. Come on. She's already trying to take my power. And now I understand I don't have to pray for her, but every day of her life, that poor woman, I've had more press than anybody I know who's not a Kardashian. I swear, without any effort on my part, there wasn't a time she could open up the paper, go to a beauty shop and look at a magazine, turn on TV, and I wasn't there. She tried to kill me, and it only made me live. So for all the hatred, there's such growth. And so it took me to where I am today, only because you have to look for it. Sometimes it will be so hard. Somebody dies. There's nothing good to say about that. I can only say that the pain that you experience over somebody who you've loved, imagine how profound a love that they could so impact your life. How grateful are you to have had that experience when people don't know what love is and don't know what it is to be loved? So that bittersweet recognition, it's worth looking at every situation. If you're really doing the work, sometimes when I'm really strong, I'll like, okay, this is horrible. What do you got for me? What's on the other side of this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give a little personal anecdote quickly. And this is so minuscule and like silly compared to what you've shared. I'm in real estate. So as a real estate agent, you really are like, if you don't have your mojo, you've got nothing, I mean, when I switched into real estate, I was completely opened up to the world of manifestation, morning rituals. And I mean, because when your headspace is right and when you're positive, you have to be positive and you have to have the right mindset. And you don't just get a paycheck by showing up that day. You can't just show up. You are always on, right? So you start to become a little paranoid about things that might interrupt your vibe. So I'm very conscious about my energy, and I'm very conscious about having things not like interfere with my performance. So let's say I'm like trying to work through a complicated deal, or I'm like pushing for something to break my way. And then lo and behold, John, my husband, will get me so aggravated about something. Like, we are both pretty stubborn and passionate people. So like when we're good, we're like amazing. And then when we fight, it's like we could go crazy for hours. So we together, like we'll get into an argument. Some of the reason why I get so agitated is not because of the argument. It's because I don't want my mindset affected later. Like I don't want my mojo thrown off. So I'll get so annoyed and I'll be like, look at that. Like now what's going to happen? You got my karma's all messed up now. I was so rude. Like, look at what I deserve the worst now. This deal isn't going to happen. And then I'm like, you know what though? It never ends up blowing up whatever I have going on. In fact, I'll get a phone call and like the deal went through, or someone like wants to go to the next step. Like, it's so funny because I mentally tell myself, like, when you're charged and you're fired up, or you're angry, you're sad, or you're upset, or whatever the situation is that you think is negative, regardless of whether it's negative or positive, you are now filled with energy. You are a powerful being at that time.
Great.
And
that's
I really,
a great realization.
Right? And I feel like you cause things to happen when you're in that state, and being conscious of that and being conscious of your power when that's happening can help you to look past the small situation, not small situation, but the in the weeds view of it. And you can kind of, you can still stay on track despite difficulty, you can.
That's good.
Right? Like, well, to use, and to use it to your advantage.
Well, I mean, think of the alternative. We're going to have negative stuff happen to us our whole lives. Negative meaning it's not what I would prefer, right? It's never going to stop. There's always going to be something you're not going to like, or something you don't want to do, or something that's happening you wish it wasn't. So why not find a way to deal with it, just to relieve your stress and kind of look at it differently? Okay, so when I was getting ready to fly, I'm talking to you now from Arizona. I have a home in the Southwest, and I live in New York City off season. So I'm there, and I wanted to come back here. So we were told to arrive 4 hours in advance because of COVID. So I set my alarm for 3:15. My alarm didn't go off. I had 3 alarms set. My phone was on silent till 7 o'clock, and the driver had been trying to call me. So I wake up at 6:15. Now I could barely put on my eye makeup. I was so nervous trying to get out of the house, like this. But what happened is I'm in the car, and I thought, okay, you can either freak out and you can rehearse panic and destruction the entire way, or what you can do is calm yourself down and tell yourself everything's going to be okay. There's always an answer. Even if I miss it, there'll be a way around it. And try not to give myself angina in the meantime, right? I got there. There's nobody in the airport. I was still there an hour and a half in advance. But, they made me say, but I just thought, it's mental discipline. I had to take a hold of my fear and just calm it down and say, shut up. We're going to do this a little bit differently, because otherwise, what is the choice? Be crazy for 2 hours and heartsick? I don't need that. So that's what I try and practice.
It's so true. It's like, this is the situation that you're in. If you can't change that exact moment, then we have to, make the best of it so that the future can align itself to be a better situation. I feel like that's totally, totally spot on. So, okay. So I know that a lot of people are listening right now because we are going to be talking about relationships, and something that I think has been so crazy over the course of this past year with the pandemic really is that relationship dynamics have completely done a 180, right? So if you're in a relationship with someone right now, or if you were in a relationship, like kind of like what you mentioned earlier, if you were already in a situation with someone, that relationship looks very different today than it did in February of last year.
Right.
We're tight quarters, sharing space, sharing office space. We are totally different people to say. And if you're single right now, dating during a pandemic is just completely nuts. So what has been your biggest observation in the shift or the challenge that you found relationships and individuals to be experiencing right now?
What I loved was actually very positive in the beginning of it, and I'll tell you why. My dominant audience is like 24 to 44, so it's millennials. And the work that I do is trying to help them to educate themselves to have better relationships and show up as their authentic self and learn how to communicate what they want and need, right? So without the opportunity to physically get together, and that means normally to have a hookup, without starting that way, they were forced to communicate for a month. whether it was video chat or it was on chat features or finally Zoom or whatever platform they used, they couldn't just jump to the physical. And what I found was that so many people were, I mean, I never stopped working. Oh my gosh, it was so busy, but they're like, oh my God, I've never had a connection like this, because they got to know the person. They got to talk to them. This is what we want. This is the foundation of a relationship. But COVID slowed everybody down so that they did a lot of communicating, and it was deeper. And when they finally had an opportunity to meet in person, either went or didn't, you know, you had to go both ways. I had couples that were COVID couples and on Zoom all day long and chatting and FaceTime to get through the pandemic. And the minute that their city opened up, they were like, yeah, this was fun. Thanks a lot. I'm done. Now I get to explore everybody. And others were like, oh my gosh, I've never had a connection like this. So it slowed people down. And I loved the fact that there was more communication. That was the good thing.
Yeah. That's amazing. I actually really wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, there was some good news that came out of this.
I love how you told us the positive and gave us a little bit of a positive spin on it as well. For those of us who are in a relationship, who are living together and now sharing work from home office space, do you have any advice for people who can, you know, maybe alleviate the stressful feelings that may arise from being stuck in close quarters, you know, practically on top of each other with very little private time?
It's really hard. This is why people get pissy when they go on a vacation. People oftentimes will say, oh, if you want to really test how this partner is, go on a vacation, because it's a stress. I think look, so much has changed. In COVID, we couldn't work out. We couldn't go and hang with our friends. We couldn't go to work. You were in lockdown, so maybe you felt horrible about yourself. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't do things. You couldn't see your friends. So your partner, you're with them an abnormal amount of time with no other outlet. And so it gets very irritating. Finding psychic space, like just, I remember having a one bedroom, my partner would be on the other side, and I could just feel him like I call it like a raccoon. I could feel he wanted my attention. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to pay. I just want to work. I could feel like he needed something. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to know this. I don't want to feel this. Or, you know, they feel angry or they feel testy, and you're just like, oh. So psychic space means finding a way, whether you have to lock yourself in the bathroom or you have to go into a corner, you have to sit in a hallway or a staircase. It means to find a way to clear your mind and get your own peace, just to have that nothing. And that's been hard. You can certainly attest to that, right?
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging. I think that in so many ways, personally, in my personal relationship, I want to say that we are closer to a certain extent. I mean, we've found a way to work in the same apartment and we're both always on the phone, but it's a challenge. But, you know, I think that there are so many people out there that are just really struggling mentally and emotionally with the current situation. And I'm thinking as well about single people too. I'm wondering if what can you say to our single people who have been, like you said, you know, talking virtually with people and doing the most, you know, dating that COVID would allow, how, what would you say to them to help those relationships that could possibly amount to something to actually blossom and form into something more long-term once you are able to be in person more?
Well, first of all, it's not forever. The vaccine is being dispensed as quickly as possible. And, you know, love doesn't have a guarantee. I'd love to say this person you've been talking to for 6 months is your soulmate. I don't know that. You don't know that. They could be, they might not be. You just have to trust yourself and proceed as if. I like to enter relationships positively, not blind to red flags, but positively, because if you don't start with an attitude of this could be wonderful, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So give it a shot. And you just keep talking about how you feel to your partner. I'm sure they feel the same way. It's been a really long year, right? It's been
Yes.
a very long year.
Yeah. So you mentioned going into it very positive. So what would you say to people who say, I've been hurt before, like I've gone into something positive and my heart was broken. So now I go up with my guard up, of course. What would you say to that?
It gets harder as you get older. You get more cynical the more people you know. Unfortunately, a lot of people have an agenda. Love is whimsical. But the only one we really need to trust is ourselves. You can't trust the other person, so get over it. Just get over it. You can trust yourself to be resilient. You can trust that if you want to, you can fall in love. Are you making a good choice? I hope. If not, let's hope that you've developed the skill set to recover. And I don't buy the excuse, oh, I was hurt once, I can't love again. Get over it. Like you're either going to live on the field or you're going to live from the bleachers. Where do you want to be? I would rather get knocked down, slaughtered, and be out there living my life than in the bleachers. Now, if I'm in the bleachers and I want to be there, and I'm taking a time out and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to date, don't want somebody right now. I am securely single. I don't have fear. I don't have issues. I'm not, bitter. That's fine. Take a chill, get yourself together, do what you want to do. You don't have to be partnered. It's not a requirement. But if you want to be partnered, but you're terrified, I urge you to work through those things that are holding you back, because it's not going to get better. You're going to get more and more comfortable being uncomfortable. And so everybody gets hurt. You have to accept that this is part of love. There are going to be upsides to the ride and downsides. You can't just get one. It's not just all sunny days. The partner that you love could not be here next year. You could say goodbye in the morning, they get hit by a car. You could end up suddenly meeting somebody else and going, oh my God, I don't even know how to do this. I'm madly in love. This is my soulmate. What am I going to say to my partner? You don't know. So
Interesting.
We just have to be present, take the ride,
So interesting. So you're saying like go into everything positive, kind of throw ourselves in and give it the chance.
I would.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to love. Understand there's no guarantees. It's the most high risk sport out there.
Right.
You've got people like, what is it? Is it Laird? Somebody or other, he's helicoptered onto a wave that's like 100 feet tall. It's like, I mean, this guy does this, and we do the most insane things in sports. And I think I wrote about that maybe in the book. It overwhelms me what people do. They climb a sheer face of a mountain with nothing but their fingernails. But then they meet a girl later that night after the climb, and they're like afraid to tell her that they like her. I'm like, yeah, I don't get this. So I think we have to develop our chops as far as love goes too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's something that your book really does help with. I think honestly too, again, sorry to bring it up again, but just knowing that if you do expose yourself and show who you really are, it's not going to ruin everything. And if it does, then maybe that wasn't the right place for you. Yeah.
No, it's better. It's better. I dated on purpose for almost 6 years, players, hardcore guys, at least half my age, no skill set for a relationship, definitely the guy that hits once and runs. And I did that because I'd always been a relationship girl. Part of me wanted to be modern, and it was a very sad experiment into you're a relationship girl. Yeah. I wish you could be cool. You're not. You're not cool like your friends. They could go get a pedicure, have a man get a pedicure and whatever, and they're fine. So I did that because I needed to examine. I had a fundamental belief that the one thing that was missing in all of this hookup scene was people truly showing up. I had a belief that I knew these guys would slaughter me emotionally, and I knew I couldn't separate myself. But I thought, if I can go in and fully show up, show them who I am, and actually be present and warm and loving, maybe I can alter some aspect of this. And an average girl or an average guy can go out and meet somebody, and the information I give them is valuable. And I didn't want to hurt a good guy while I was mucking about. So I thought I need the worst case guys, right? And I learned conclusively every single time that, of course, I got bucked off the ride, and of course, I got hurt. And I learned all these games I never knew existed before. But I also learned that they had a really hard time. My safety net was they really liked Susan, because Susan showed up. Exactly what I thought was true. The one thing that's missing is the love. It's the humanity. There is no difference between a Tuesday night hookup and a Saturday night hookup. Different bodies, that's it. But who are you when you engage with them? That we are so terrified about is our only security, because that's what I call emotional Velcro. That's the thing that makes the difference, where that person feels the connection to. They've got to have a human that they can connect to. So all of the people that are afraid to show up and afraid to show themselves, that's exactly what you need. If you think of all these romantic movies, it's the time when the tough guy finally shows his humanity, that the girl goes, oh, I do love him. He's not just a jerk. So it's a classic story, but we miss it when it's our own lives. So that's my spiel about that thing.
So true. So enlightening. Thank you so much for that. How about those of us who are overcoming a breakup during this time? I feel like this is a time where we're isolated. We can't just go have a drink with the guys or with the girls. Can you help us work through that? Is there anything that we can do to help us heal and grow while we are very much in our own headspace by ourselves?
This is a really, really tough time for a breakup. So if you are struggling, give yourself a pass, because everything is different. You don't have work where you can leave and get away and change your environment. Maybe you used to travel, and that was part of what kept you grounded, the excitement. You're in your house. Maybe you're not even working. You can't see your friends the way you want to unless you have a pod that you see. So much, and you can't even go out and look for somebody new in the same way that you used to. So it's going to hurt more, because you're going to have more idle time to think about it. You're going to have more idle time to miss them. Worse yet, if you're looking on social media and they have found somebody, you're going to feel terrible. So just understand that a breakup is bad under normal circumstances, but if you're feeling like, what is wrong with me that I can't get through this, it has been augmented by this time period. So you do the same protocol. You look at your life, you try to accept the best that was there. You try to hold that as a gift that you got, because if you can't get a gift out of a relationship, even that's ended, where you feel you've got one up, you will always feel like it's a loss. So you've got to look for the gain and at least hold that. So the person's gone, maybe, oh my gosh, they were the one that inspired me to create music. I have clients that, so I have one who's a professional singer and songwriter, and she's a bit of a big thing, right? And she had not been creative in the last year or two. Went through a very quick hookup and infatuation, and then breakup, and then stuck in COVID. 20 songs, new EPs. I mean, she was just like, she's so prolific. And I said, this gal was your muse. Look at what happened. Good for you. So if you can't find a benefit, it will always be a loss. I also, if you do Audible, I've got an audiobooklet called Breakup Triage, The Cure for Heartache. I think it's $1.99 on Amazon, and it's probably free on most Audible subscriptions. And the cool thing about that is I can walk you through the first 7 steps of a new breakup. There are 7 steps, I think, to get you stabilized. And the first thing you need to do is what happened. If you don't have an answer for what happened, even if they tell you, I don't know, I just don't feel it, you've got to create an answer for yourself, because you can't move on to the next step. And then the next couple steps are a realistic version of who they were. They weren't the perfect person. They weren't the worst person. So we can't fragment them in either or. They were a complete person, some good, some bad. And then we have to take a look at ourselves, and there's some other steps in there. But the last is that it probably wasn't the person that you were attracted to. We tend to idealize the person that has left. And we tend to think that they've walked away with our love. I have found the opposite. And I had an aha moment. And I think I was, God, late 40s by the time. And I wish somebody told me this in my first heartache. But I remember standing outside my window, and this is in Breakup Triage. And I'm looking at the rooftop of the fellow that I fell for one of my players. What else is new? It's me. I should have known. I mean, hook, line, and sinker. Oh my God. And I'm thinking, I feel love for this guy. He's there. I'm having all this feeling inside. He's not even with me. And then this unbelievable realization. I was feeling love. It's my love I'm feeling. We can only feel the love that we have access to inside of ourselves. I went, oh my God, he's just the catalyst. Then my mind went, oh, wait, it's bigger than that. I've been shaking the can, trying to get a couple pennies out of him. Like, oh God, please give me a sign that you love me. Please, please, I just want you back. And then I went, oh my God, I own the bank. I don't need his check. I own the bank. It's me. It's my love. I get to love whoever I want to love. I can go down the street and love the guy at the deli. It's all I'm feeling is my love. Then I went, he's a rather insignificant part of the whole story, to be honest with you. So then I talk about what's called the dream, and the dream is what hooks us. And so I've identified it as, this is a Susanism, but it seems to me that what we fall in love with, the person catalyzes this fantasy of a life. Their new input sparks exploration and excitement. And we start building a dream of our future. Like maybe they're going to be my husband and I can have a family, and they love the country and I love the country, and yet we want to be urban workers and we can be like a power couple, blah, 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 blah. When they leave, it's really the dream that you mourn. You think it's the person, but the person was just a vehicle that gives you access to that dream. So you've still got your dream. So I walk you through this thing so that at the end of 33 minutes of Breakup Triage, you're like, Stan who? You know, Betty who? Who did I think I was in love with? You know, they're kind of not even a part of it. So it dissects it so that you can get your way through it. So just an FYI, if you want that, the book is out there. And so is the audio file. Yeah.
So Breakup Triage is the book, and The Cure for Heartache is the audio book.
It's Breakup Triage, The Cure for Heartache is the entire audio booklet, and it's also an ebook.
Oh, sorry about that. Right.
You have to, so it's so weird. You have to do ebooks in order to get the audio booklet. I only do it for the audio, but yeah. So that's on Amazon and stuff. It's like it's $1, I think, or 99 cents. It's crazy silly.
Yeah. Thank you for
it's accessible.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that too. And honestly, after reading one of your publications, that truly the way that you articulate the experience is something that is so, it's just incredible the way that you are able to relate. Really, like, it's impossible to read. It's so true. It's impossible to read something that you wrote and not be able to identify with it, in all honesty.
Thank you. I love that. I love that. It's, you know, it's finding the right words. I think words are really important to me, and finding the right way to describe things to people. All I want to do is take away the pain. There's a lot of pain in life. And if I can use language and it helps and I can think my way through it, you know, part of what we're trying to do is to learn to think our way into a better position in life, whether it's that you want a positive mental attitude and you realize that you can create a better life because of it. We're trying to utilize all the tools possible so that we can live the richest, fullest, most expanded version of who we are, correct? Mm-hmm. And so getting ourselves out of heartache, having a tool set that we can count on for relationships when we get into trouble, so that we have an idea of how to handle it and what to do, instead of just being like, oh my God, this is terrible. I feel horrible. I don't know what to do.
Right.
So, you know, knowledge is power, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and your ability to put things into steps, it's like, it's very unique to you. The way that you have many different steps that you will put into it's funny because when I was reading your other book, Allowing Magnificence, your chapters are like 1.5 pages long. Like,
yeah, that's how I want to read them. Like, it's got a whole story and then it ends, right?
Yes. Yes. And it was funny because when I first started the book off, I was like, oh, that's interesting. She has like 1-page chapters. Like, who does that? But I'm like, you're doing you. And it works. It works for the book, but it allows you to mentally
Oh.
compartmentalize every message as you go instead of getting lost in a long chapter.
I
So,
used to read this, and something that people don't know unless they've ever had a publisher. You ever wonder why books are like 225 plus pages long, and half the time you're reading it, you're going, I feel like they're going in a cycle. I can read now, and I hit a section where I'm like, oh man, they asked them for another 25 pages. I can feel it because they keep going over the same material. Publishers do that to you to substantiate the reason for why they're asking for $25 for a paperback or something. So they need it to be a certain amount of pages, and you start just repeating. I wanted to do like one entire concept, a beginning, the problem, how you fix it, and then a happy ending. And I put them all in order, but you can read any one of them according and pull it out, and it makes full sense. So each individual thing makes sense. So the thing about self-publishing is I got to do it the way I wanted to. And this time I didn't have a publisher going, oh, you got to write another 25 pages.
yeah.
So I'm so happy that you say that. I'm really thrilled that I'm so thrilled to hear
Yeah.
what you're
No, I
saying.
love it.
It makes
And
me
that's
very happy.
yeah, and that's the thing sometimes too. I get stressed when I'm reading sometimes because you see the fluff and you're like, oh my God. Like sometimes I'll feel like it's a waste of time, some of the stuff that I'll pick up. But yeah, zero fluff, just like you. I mean, there's no fluff here. There's no BS. It's like we're getting right to what you need to know. Honestly, so that's why I feel like you're such a gift.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you very much. It's lovely.
Thank you. So another question that we have is what can you say about the health and mental side effects of being in a pandemic environment where we are withholding from ourselves a level of human connection, whether it be getting into an intimate relationship or
Yeah.
seeing friends and family, because these are all relationships. It doesn't have to be an intimate relationship to be within the realm of what you deal with. So yeah, what about those effects of not having connection?
They're bad. Think of the people that have the guilt over not being able to be with a parent or a relative who is dying and they're not allowed into the hospital. Think of the people that have nobody and have been stuck in maybe a studio apartment by themselves and without contact. It's really disastrous. People do need human contact. Fortunately, we have mediums like this, video calls and phone calls. It's not the same as human touch. I understand that, but most of us do. I remember, so I have an uncle that he's almost 90 and he turned 89. And just as he had left his home and sold his beautiful home where he could walk about, have his freedom, and went into independent living, the lockdown happened. And then he was in lockdown with a bunch of other old people and we couldn't see him. His son would go and wave to him from the parking lot. I mean, it was terrible. And it's just a horrible thing that we've had to live through. I haven't been able to see him. He didn't know how to do a Zoom call. Are you kidding? My goodness. So it's going to have long-term effects upon a lot of people. And I think, I think there's going to be a real splurge in once people are free and there are enough vaccines distributed. Oh my God, overseas travel and hotels. I mean, it's pent up sexuality. Don't think they're going to be going to quit. I mean, they're going to be like boom, 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 boom. It's going to go. We've been held back. It's going to be a stampede, a sexual stampede, a travel stampede, you name it. So it's going to counterbalance itself immediately.
So true. So true. And I feel like too, that's something that I personally struggled with during the pandemic is I have people in my immediate family who were high risk. So with my father, my grandma who's older, and it's like you want to see these people, obviously, but you can't bear the thought of the guilt that you would feel if you were the reason why they caught COVID, So yeah, like that guilt has been incredible during this whole thing. That's been something really difficult to deal with.
Yeah. My uncle, I kept trying to go out to see him. I thought I'd go out in the fall. And what happened is I think we got a quick spike. I was going out a couple weeks before Thanksgiving because I knew there'd be a spike later. And my cousin's family's like, no, we don't want any people from New York. No, we're closing. No, nobody's going to be here for Thanksgiving. So I didn't get a chance to see him again, you know. And I was like, oh, I know. We
It's
talk
hard.
on the phone. I know.
Yeah.
And I send
It's
cards, physical
yeah.
cards, because he's
Yeah.
of the age where they do mail.
Yeah, that's like, that's the thing. It's like we've rediscovered mail. Like in the beginning of the
Yeah.
pandemic, I sent like little bead bracelets to like my
Oh,
friends and family. Like, it's just like the little things that you can do. I
yeah.
mean, we were all like on FaceTime 24/7, and then that kind of like sort of died out unless it was like an occasion from then on. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely been tough, but thankfully we have the technology to help us a little bit.
That's fabulous.
How about a little bit of a deeper question for you?
Okay.
Talking about our own mental state and our own confidence. How important is our own mindset and our own confidence when it comes to going into a relationship and having it be rewarding?
So the point at which you go in pretty much dictates these factors you have to deal with. Meaning, if I enter a relationship out of loneliness, desperation, and need, those are the issues I will be dealing with in that relationship.
Interesting. Can you go more? Can you tell us more?
Well, the times that I've done that, I've never been on solid footing. I didn't have my confidence. I overvalued the person. I overvalued having a relationship. And I got into the middle of it and realized I was incredibly reactive, which then made me less attractive. And I was volatile. And I was trying to maintain and hold back from being volatile. And yet I was insecure. So I started lurching and pulling back and lurching and pulling back. Ideally, it's best if we walk into a relationship with hopeful optimism. And I guess that's the way I'd put it. You hope for the best. Anything is possible. It might be a connection. It might not. You take it one step at a time, but that you can have a sense of yourself. That's why people oftentimes wonder after a breakup or they've been going through a negative situation, when is the right time to date? When is the right time to get out there? If you are desperate and needy, that person's not going to fix it. It's going to augment your problems. If you go out with just normal neuroses, you're going to be fine. Okay. If you go that, but the ones who really catch the big fish, and you're going to hear this most times, people that, either they were done. It's like, oh, I'm exhausted. I'm getting off these apps. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And one last one pops up and you're like, oh, whatever. Okay. I'll see you. I'm like, they're interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'll keep talking. 6 hours later, wow, you're really cool. We should get together. You weren't looking for it. So there's a thing about, you hear people say it happens when you're not looking for it. It's not accurately phrased. What they mean, what they should say, what actually happens technically is you already know exactly what you want. You've either been frustrated and you gave up for a minute, or you turned your back on it, or you got busy doing something else. And you weren't tense and locked in on like, I gotta have it. So it had the freedom to come to you. That's what happens. You just weren't uptight and grabbing at it. So it came to you, right? So that's that thing.
Amazing. That definitely resonates for sure. And knowing and believing that you are enough, that you are bringing something amazing to the table, right, is a huge part.
We all struggle with that self-esteem, and it gets harder as you get older. As a woman, I like who I am a whole lot. I like what I've accomplished. I always think I could have done 10,000 things more, or I could have done it better. I could have done more of it, whatever. And then you've got the aging process. I've got to deal with that and go, oh yeah, don't look the way I did last year. Maybe I should get off the desk and just like go to the gym, So there are lots of things that we have to deal with. And I think at some point we just have to get over ourselves. Just get over ourselves and get out there,
It's interesting. I've definitely had, yeah, I definitely understand that. I feel like it's funny because it's when you say get over ourselves, I almost feel like the times when I did like really have a heart to heart with myself, being like genuinely, I need to get over myself. I feel like those are the times where I've grown the most.
Okay, so this is classic, and any single woman or any woman in the audience will relate to this. You know, the day you leave your house, you not feel it, you're haven't showered, you got a baseball cap on, dirty hair, and you're like amazed. You come home and go, why did those three guys try and pick me up? What was that? I look disgusting. Why did they want? I mean, what was that? And a cute guy like that. Why did I run into him then? I didn't feel good about myself. And so what we don't understand, and again, this is more heterosexually, situated, but it's like we didn't feel like we were going to be attracting somebody, so we didn't have any weird energy about being on or don't I look gorgeous. If anything, we were kind of neutral and retracted, and they felt confident enough to like, oh, like she looks like a nice person, not her best day, I'll talk to her, right? So they weren't intimidated. We didn't have weird vibes. We weren't even paying attention. And suddenly these cute guys are coming on to us. And every woman's got a couple stories like that. Am I right? Do you remember what I was saying?
Literally so true. I was just talking about this with someone. Like,
I love that.
I think I saw someone post on their story, on their Instagram story, and I was like, that's so true. Like, why is that? Are we more approachable when we look bad, or is it the energy that we're giving off? Like,
Both.
what is it?
Both. We're more accessible. We're not on a pedestal. They're not as terrified. Men have, they have a lot of fear around approaching a woman. Like they want to, they don't know if they should. They're afraid to be shot down. Yeah, so sometimes they stop themselves. It's a confidence thing for them too. And the ones who are really good at it are the players. So, there's a big gap between a player and a decent guy that wants to say hi to you. But that day he figures he might have a shot. And you're also not looking like, you're kind of looking off duty to him. So he's thinking maybe maybe she'll chat with me because she doesn't look like she's running anywhere. She's not too scary. She doesn't have her, or like I'm gorgeous vibe on, so I think they feel comfortable. Yeah.
I feel like it's so true. It's so funny. I feel like that's every girl's like biggest question, like genuinely, because you're like, it just doesn't ever make sense. You're like, like I look awful right now. I don't understand. And it really is like, it's the energy too. It's sort of like taking a picture. Like, did you ever notice how if someone catches you in a photo and you didn't know they were taking it, you're like, oh, it's kind of cute. And then when you know the picture's being taken, you're like looking like so awkward. You're like,
right. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Right? Yeah. Like maybe it's also that too. Like when you walk around like feeling yourself, like it's actually may not really be as attractive.
Most women, when we know we look really good, there's a part of us that wants to look good, and the other part is busy pushing guys away that we don't want to come on to us. So there's that fight of like, I want you, don't you guys, oh God, I know I look, he's going to say something. I'm going to walk by, I'm wearing a short skirt, or I'm wearing something tight. Oh my God, my hair's all done. I know they're going to look at me. Don't approach me. So we're pushing them away half the time. It's weird, right?
Yeah. So Susan, this was such an amazing conversation. We could go on for hours and hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. So could you give to our audience, I know that we're all going through our own individual challenges right now. So could you speak directly to our audience and provide some piece of advice that could uplift us right now?
Okay. Well, if you're all alive up to this point, you know you can do it. Meaning, the cool thing about life is that if you're anything over like 2.5 or 3 years old, you've had loss and you survived. You've had wins. We have ups and you handled that, and you've had downs. So historically speaking, you have survived all that you've lived through. So why would you not survive moving forward? And if anything, do better. That's the one thing I like about aging that gives you a little bit of confidence, is that you've seen yourself fall and spectacularly on your face, and you lived through it. If anything, you spun it and made it work for you, and you've seen yourself succeed. So that's what confidence is, that you're able to lose and win and still keep going and know that all will be well.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was so nice and definitely very, very reassuring.
Thank you, dolls. Thank you. This was lovely talking to you.
This was
Lovely, lovely. I feel like I'm just having a chat with a girlfriend, a new girlfriend that I like very, very much.
same. I'm so, so glad that we have come into each other's lives. This was a giant blessing. And I'm going to direct the audience to definitely check out Susan's work. Please pick up her books, listen to the audiobooks, check Susan out on YouTube. Susan is huge on YouTube. I was definitely nervous to talk to you because you are famous and you've got a lot going on
Sweet
YouTube.
woman.
Yeah, I mean your YouTube, it's so easy to just go through like 10 of your videos and not even know where the time went. They're just amazing.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it when I hear people go, I was binge watching you till 2 a.m. I'm like, yes, they do that with Breaking Bad. I'm like up there with Breaking Bad. I'm so excited.
No, it's so true. And when I'm looking at your content on YouTube too, it's funny because even the videos that I don't think I'm going to relate to, because I'm like, oh, like I'm married, I'm not dating, or whatever the case is, I relate to every single thing that you post. It's like unbelievable. So yeah, definitely check that out. And then please let the audience know, Susan, what the best ways to reach you are, because I don't want our audience to forget that you are a love coach. You do provide one-on-one help as well. So where can they reach you?
Go to susanwinter.net. And in most search engines, I should be, if you just type in Susan Winter, I should be the first one up. I don't pay for that. I'm just really, really so blessed that I've had so much great, great press throughout my entire life. So and please come to my YouTube channel, Susan Winter, and take a look, subscribe that, and put on the notifications if you like stuff. I've got a live show every Thursday. Come on, chat, say you saw this show. Let's talk to each other. Let me know what you need to hear from me, and I'll be happy to help you. Okay?
Amazing. Susan, thank you so much. Thank you so much
You
for your
too,
time.
honey. Thank you too. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye now. Bye, everyone.
Guys, another amazing episode is in the books. I hope you guys love this one. I want to remind you guys before you head out to please like and subscribe, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching on the YouTube channel. Please make sure that you are subscribed and that you give this episode a thumbs up or leave the podcast a positive review. This is completely free and it is the biggest way that you can show your support to me so that I can continue bringing you videos like this. You can check out all of my contact info in the description. I am always interested in your feedback, and be sure to follow me on Instagram at Christina.Kremidas for weekly giveaways and a look behind the scenes. Thank you guys so much again, and stay tuned for our next episode, episode 6, where we are going to be talking to a spiritual wellness expert. So stay tuned for that and make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thank you guys again so much, and I'll see you soon.